I'm Jeff Cowan. I'm the dean of the Annenberg School for another couple of weeks. And I want to say that one of the great joys of being the dean during this time has been working with Marty Kaplan and Norman Lear and the fabulous Norman Lear Center team on all kinds of great work, and particularly on these Walter Cronkite Awards, which I think have proved to be inspirational for people in the field, and we hear that every year. And the conversation that you just conducted, Marty, and the conversation that all of these winners, Suits and Talent, were part of, I thought was superb. Congratulations to all of you. I think that if the Annenberg School and if academia generally can help to inspire and connect people with new models and new ideas, as was suggested happened during that session, I think we've more than done our job, and I think we do a lot more. We also got great ideas for future training of journalism students and other things. It was a wonderful session. Marty Kaplan, of course, ran that great session and runs these awards and runs the Norman Lear Center. And please join me in welcoming Marty Kaplan.
Thank you, Jeff. Earlier today, I mentioned that there were a lot of people to thank, and I want to be sure that we do some of that now, but that doesn't mean you have to stop eating. I'm sure everyone I'm thanking would want you to eat. We have here today some of the people who screened and acted as jurors and judges for the Cronkite Awards. It is, as you can imagine, a very lengthy, time-consuming, difficult process, and they're all volunteers, and we're very grateful that they were able to do it. They're members of our Annenberg School family. They're, many of them, broadcast professionals, and I would like all of those here who were part of that process to please stand just for a moment so we can thank you. I thanked Norman before. I never tire of thanking him. And so we're thrilled you're here. We're thrilled that we have the Norman Lear Center. And all of us are honored by your commitment to the things that you care about. So thank you again. The Lear Center staff, along with the staffs of the Annenberg School and other event teams, did an incredible job in both getting ready for this event today, but also in all the work that happens behind the scenes for the Cronkite Awards. And so I'm just going to hold your applause for a moment. I'm going to mention a bunch of names that I'm going to ask them all at once to either raise their hands and be recognized. At the Lear Center, Johanna Blakely, Leslie Wong, Scott McGibbon, Kathy Lee, Grace Wong, Iva Schroeder, there are other, Clemente Ladrito is here. Have I left anyone out? Oh, and Mike and Drontel. I think that is the cue for the applause. The Lear Center, as I mentioned earlier, is about the topic of entertainment and society. How entertainment has become such an important force, and what are the consequences of that in society. And as a result, one of the areas that we look very closely at is the impact of that on all the pieces of democracy, like news and like politics. And in the course of doing that work, I've had the honor and the privilege from time to time to testify in front of the FCC and to provide research materials to it. And I have come to admire greatly the person I'm about to introduce, who is going to get our lunch remarks going. he, on the Hill, worked for Senator Fritz Hollings. He worked in the Commerce Department, but it's since 2001 at the FCC that I think he's become a national star in the media reform movement. Now, for some people in this room, suits, the media reform movement is not necessarily the thing that you think is neater than sliced bread. On the other hand, I think what he has proven is that there are ways to collaborate, to work together, to try to define together the notion of what public interest is, what the ownership of the airwaves by the public means as a consequence to those who have that privilege, and to what we as a democracy need in order to be flourishing and healthy. And so when we asked him to come today to be a keynoter, we were absolutely thrilled that he did plan a trip to be here, and it's my great pleasure to ask you to please join me in welcoming Commissioner Mike Copps. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marty. Good afternoon. I want you to continue eating too. It bothers me not at all if you do that. In fact, that way I won't feel I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. So please proceed. Thank you, Marty, for that very kind introduction. While I am not receiving a Cronkite Award here today, I nevertheless feel hugely honored, really, to be a part of this prestigious gathering. And thank you, Dean Cowan, for having us here at the Annenberg School. Both you and Marty and this great school have provided such visionary and such amazing leadership in the crusade to improve broadcast journalism. It's an honor to be in the company of the distinguished broadcast journalists who are going to be recognized following our lunch today. Their presence testifies not only to their individual achievements, which are considerable, but to what broadcasting is capable of, even amidst the many challenges that confront our country's media. So I'm proud to share the platform with them. But there's one more source for the honor and the pride that I feel in being here, and that's because of the name that this award bears, Walter Cronkite. There could be no better title for these awards that celebrate and honor the work of today's best broadcast journalists. Walter Cronkite brings such credibility, adds such stature to this gathering. You know, one of my stellar experiences, really, since going to the FCC in 2001 has been getting to know Walter Cronkite, and to be able now to count him as a friend and to have the opportunity to work every day at the Commission for the kind of public interest ideals that his career personifies over so many event-filled years, even decades. There are many reasons why Walter Cronkite became the most trusted person in America. Not the least of these is his ongoing trust in the American people and his lifelong commitment to making sure that the media where he works reflects the interests, reflects the diversity, reflects the dreams of his fellow citizens. He lives his ideals, and there is no one really in our national life that I admire more than this good man. Many of you have spent the morning, I understand, talking about the state of America's media. You are part of a budding national dialogue on issues that every citizen in our democracy needs to contemplate. So even as we celebrate the enormous accomplishments of our Cronkite Award winners today, we're beginning to understand how much more difficult it is to achieve those heights in today's new media environment, how much harder it is for broadcast journalism to flourish in the way that today's honorees really embody. We live in an age where television stations, as well as newspapers, and radio stations, and just about every other form of media that you can think of, are increasingly owned by large corporations, many located hundreds, sometimes even thousands of miles away from the communities that they are serving. We live in an age when job and budget cuts in the broadcast news industry seem routine. And I don't mean Don Imus here. or even astonishing announcements such as 700 jobs and $750 million in budget being cut from a major network operation. Just as important is the slow trickle of cuts, death by 1,000 cuts in so many of our local newsrooms. And these cuts inflict harm on the industry, harm on the communities, and harm, I believe it's lasting harm, on our country. You don't need to take my word for it. Listen to what Walter Cronkite himself recently said at a forum on media ownership and the public interest. And incidentally, this was another example of his heroism because he was having some problems with his eyes and left the school immediately to go have eye surgery. It was really above and beyond the call of duty for him to come and give this speech. And he said, quote, "From my perspective, the major problem with journalism these days is not with individual journalists or the standards of the profession. The young people I see entering the field of journalism today are no less intelligent or dedicated than in my generation. They are indeed quite brave to be entering a profession with far less job security and far greater economic uncertainty than the one I knew. They do so, I believe, out of a deep sense of commitment to public service. No, the major problem I see today has to do with unrealistic expectations that consolidated corporate ownership puts on working journalists," end quote. And he went on to point out that his generation of journalists knew they would have to work hard. After all, their job was to uncover truths that politicians and special interests didn't want uncovered. But at least they expected that they would always have the resources to do their job. And now, however, Walter pointed out, they no longer have that expectation. Now, sad that is, and this is how he put it. He said, "Today, I do not believe most journalists have the luxury of having enough resources. Instead, they are saddled with inflated profit expectations from Wall Street. They face round after round of job cuts and cost cuts that require them to do ever more with ever less. In this information age and the very complicated world in which we live, the need for high-quality reporting is greater than ever. It's not just the journalists' jobs at risk here. It's American democracy. It's freedom's future," end quote. Now, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom because certainly Walter Cronkite didn't sound that way. He ended his speech saying, "America is a powerful and prosperous nation we certainly should insist upon and can afford to sustain, a media system of which we can be proud," end quote. And I think that's just the right way to put it. Thankfully, we are a rich and powerful nation, and we certainly can afford to sustain a great media system, even at a time of great technological ferment and complexity. The question is how we manage this transition and ensure that American voters and citizens continue to get the high-quality news that they need and that they deserve to have. I think each of us has a role to play. For openers, the FCC needs to back off any further loosening of the few media ownership protections that have survived. This is not the time for more duopolies or triopolies or sweetheart newspaper broadcast cross-ownership deals that strangle localism, strangle diversity, and strangle competition. But it shouldn't be all about playing defense either. Why can't the FCC go on the offense for a change? Once upon a time, there were FCCs that did that. Here's one idea. Let's make FCC license renewal into more than a paper tiger. That means that every time a media company comes in to renew a license, it should have to prove that it is serving the public interest. No more postcard license renewals. Let's actually require a station to show that it is providing public affairs programming, genuine children's educational shows, political campaign coverage, and so on before we renew the license. And let's also make sure all of this information is up on the web so citizens around the country can see how their airwaves are being used. I think it'd be a wonderful stimulus to public awareness and to public action. And let's do license renewal every 3 years like we used to do it, rather than send in the postcard once every 8 years like we do it today. It is also past time for the FCC to get serious about the public interest in the digital age. You know, digital TV means a single station can offer up to 6 individual channels of programming. That's a lot of power, a lot of influence. Do we really need to fill up all that capacity with more of this nationalized, homogenized corporate programming? Why can't we make sure that some significant part of this additional capacity is dedicated to local programming, independent programming? So many independent producers, actors, directors in this community who have lost out. Here's a wonderful opportunity for reflecting their creative talent and their genius. So why can't we make sure that a substantial part is dedicated to programming produced by minorities? Right now, minorities, as you all know, make up almost a third of the population of our great country. They own about 3% of full-power commercial television stations, maybe 2% of the broadcast assets. And then we wonder, why do they always appear in caricature and stereotype on the TV screens? Why aren't their issues covered? Why don't they even hear the kind of advertising that would be directed at their various communities? We need to do better. Our media have an obligation to reflect America's diversity. Our media have an obligation to nourish America's great diversity. And I told this to the National Association of Broadcasters the day before yesterday in Las Vegas. It is a job that is not getting done, and it's only going to get done if we put some extraordinary effort and some extraordinary passion and some extraordinary commitment into it. Not business as usual, not going to solve this problem. And of course we need academics and professionals like Marty and Jeff and many of you in this room to keep up all of your good work. Information is, to a large extent, a coin of the realm in Washington. Good research, like the Lear Center's fantastic work documenting the lack of political coverage on the evening news, that takes the debate out of the realm of anecdote and into the realm of substantive social science and gives us the data and the corpus of information that we need to make intelligent decisions for the future. The facts are on our side. We shouldn't be bashful about getting them out. And I'm also talking about events just like this one that you all are attending today, where working journalists and students and teachers get together to think about how regulatory and economic issues affect your ability to do good journalism. I know that many journalists generally try to stay out of the political arena, and I certainly applaud that impulse in most cases. But you know what? If anybody is going to tell this story of how journalism is being affected by media consolidation and these other forces, it's going to have to be the journalists themselves. Who better to tell it? You have the knowledge, you have the experience, and you have the pulpit. And this is a tremendously important story, and our democracy is suffering because that story so often goes untold. Finally, and most important, each of us, as a citizen, needs to engage in this struggle. You know, even if the future of our media is not your number one issue, I submit that it needs to be your number two issue. And goodness knows, America's got all kinds of transcendently important issues, issues of peace and war, how we find jobs for our people, how we provide health insurance to the uninsured, how we educate our kids, how we provide security to our society. A lot of big issues out there. If you don't like the way that the media is handling the issues of most concern to you, then you need to do something about it. If you're happy, you think all these issues are being handled just fine, you know, you don't need to listen to me anymore. But if you think maybe those issues would benefit from a little more diversity, a little more community input, a little more competition, then I think you really need to pay attention to this debate and engage in this debate. You need to tell your friends and your coworkers and your family and everyone you know about it. It's going to be only a grassroots movement will solve this problem in the final analysis. And we've seen that grassroots movement work in defeating the media ownership rules that Michael Powell propounded a few years ago. That was a success story. Activism can still work in this society, but now we're starting all over with our media ownership. So get involved, talk about it, write about it. If you've got a good voice, sing about it. Employ whatever talents and skills you have to tell this story. But above all, do something. Get involved, be activists in this great cause, and take heart from the work of our Cronkite Award winners here today, and be inspired by the living example of Walter Cronkite himself, and know that through your efforts, we can achieve, and I really do believe this, we can achieve in the years just ahead a media that is truly reflective of the needs and the genius of this great land. Thank you very much.
Are you still eating? Thank you, Mike. That was all that we could have hoped for, and for those who were holding their breath about the potential of a different point of view being expressed than ones that some here might have, all I can say is that it's the core of good television, isn't it? Without conflict, no drama. Without drama, no attention. So I hope that the potential different points of view represented here are part of the excitement that we can bring to bear. It's now my pleasure to turn the podium over and the rest of the program over to our MC for this afternoon. She, we are thrilled, is a member of the Annenberg School of Journalism faculty. She comes to us from a career which includes just about every outlet there is. She's still on National Public Radio. She does the show California Connected, longtime correspondent for Nightline and other network shows. We're thrilled to have her both here and here. Please welcome Judy Muller.
Thank you, Marty. I'm delighted to be here today with the Cronkite winners, with broadcast professionals, with journalism educators, and I see students, especially the students. I can say without equivocation that for broadcast journalists, of course, the reward is the work, but it really feels good when somebody comes along and notices and says, way to go. And I'm so thrilled to be here and part of the Way to Go team, because if we can get people noticing the great work, then maybe others will follow you. I surely hope so. Now on to the reason we're here, honoring you. We'll show a clip from each winning entry before presenting the award. The first category of winners we honor today is local broadcast station. And this year we have 2 winners. In Seattle, King has a full-time political unit and offered more than 100 minutes of local political coverage each week. Judges said that King reporters dug deep into issues, providing viewers with clear explanations that would help them understand their choices at the polls. The Ad Watch reporting was especially good, offering not only a critique of the ad, but substantive information about the issues. In this Ad Watch, King not only offers a critique, but also information about a candidate's claims. Let's take a look.
Senator Cantwell voted to allow Social Security benefits to illegals.
This claim is false. Cantwell did not vote to give Social Security benefits to illegal immigrants. What Cantwell did support was the idea that immigrants who are now legal should get credit for the taxes they paid even while they worked illegally. That's a controversial position by itself, but to characterize it as giving benefits to illegal immigrants leaves you with the wrong impression. Under federal law, illegal immigrants are simply not eligible to collect benefits from Social Security. That's the King 5 Ad Watch. I'm Robert Mack.
This is the second win for King, a BELO station and NBC affiliate. King reporter Robert Mack, a multiple Cronkite Award winner himself, accepts on behalf of the station. You betcha.
she asked if I wanted to speak, so I suppose I should speak. Yes. On behalf of all of us at King TV and the BELO Corporation, we want to thank everyone here, USC and the Annenberg School and Mr. Lear and all of you who have been an integral part of putting together this program. In many ways, King TV faces the same challenges that every other station faces in this country, the same financial pressures, the same scrutiny over the ratings. But I think we're very fortunate in that we have a core group of people who really do understand that investing in our political coverage is not just our responsibility as broadcasters, but it's a strategy that is very noticeable to viewers and one that has paid off for us in terms of setting us apart from the competition. We are trying to create a culture at King TV. It's that excitement over political coverage that all of us can share in our newsrooms and in our morning meetings and in our cafeterias. And for that reason, we are very appreciative of this recognition because it's a third party saying those efforts are worthwhile. So I thank you very much. Thank you.
I've been asked to stand up.
Great. Our second winner in the local broadcast station category is WBAL Baltimore, a Hearst Argyle station and Hearst Argyle and NBC affiliate. WBAL, a first-time winner, was recognized for its deep coverage of candidates and key campaign issues. Judges were particularly impressed by a report on loopholes in campaign finance regulations that went well beyond publicly available information and utilized graphics to make a complicated story crystal clear.
It is to date the most expensive governor's race Maryland's ever seen, $30 million plus and counting. The amount Bob Ehrlich and Martin O'Malley have raised to finance their respective campaigns. And a good chunk of that money, according to ethics advocates, has gone to the candidates through what they call a huge loophole in campaign finance law. Bobby Walton is with the nonpartisan group Common Cause.
It's the people who are playing the system, using every single loophole they can to pile more and more money on candidates.
State law limits campaign contributions from individuals and corporations to $4,000 per candidate per election cycle. But take the example of developer Kingdon Gould, the man behind a big project in Laurel, and out-of-state developer Robert Ambrosi, whose company's set to build on a prime spot downtown. Campaign finance records show 8 $4,000 contributions to the governor in January, each under a different business name, but all connected to Kingdon Gould. Also in January, O'Malley received 5 contributions, totaling $19,750, each under a different name, but all connected to Robert Ambrosi. In both cases, the contributions were legal because each was made through a separate business entity, most of them through limited liability corporations, or LLCs, connected to each developer, but treated by campaign finance law as separate contributors. And that, according to Common Cause, is the loophole.
Accepting is WBAL's news director, Michelle Butt. Michelle? Let's do the award first and your remarks afterwards.
Oh, excellent.
Okay.
When you move to Maryland, you move there with the expectation that it is a tried and true, through and through blue state. But you quickly learn that there are two parties, Democrats and disgruntled Democrats. However, in 2006, we had the news gods smile on us, and we had true two-party discourse in our state. And thanks to the leadership at Hearst Argyle Television, we were able to exploit it through our Commitment 2006. We really believed when we looked at these campaigns, and we knew how important they would be not only to Maryland, but to our country with Senate seats hanging in the balance and things like that. And we looked at just how expensive and contentious they were going to be, because those two gentlemen do not like each other. We really believed that we had an opportunity to provide true public service, and that we needed to hold these candidates accountable, and we needed to make them transparent. And I believe that we did that, and I'm glad to know that a peer group without peer in this industry recognizes that as well. You know, we had a lot of conversation today about, was it a dying art, political reporting, and money, and this and that and the other. Well, we did a 16 rating at 11 o'clock on election night, and that's a pretty good rating. I would tell any news director, general manager, or corporate executive that if you're not doing political reporting, you're not taking advantage of opportunities in front of you, because that 16 rating was validation of the opportunities that we had taken. It wasn't a fluke. Now is my moment to thank Fred Young, as my colleagues did earlier in the panel discussion. But Fred and our CEO, David Barrett, certainly give us opportunity to be market leaders and industry leaders, and for that I am appreciative. Our unofficial political unit, of which there are many, many people, are to thank, and I do thank them, and I thank this panel very, very much. Thank you.
Our second category is local station individual achievement. Happily, there are 4 winners in this category this year. Let's first honor Greg Fox from WESH in Winter Park, Florida, a Hearst Argyle station and NBC affiliate. Greg, by the way, was a Western Night Center Fellow in 2005 here at Annenberg and attended the Cronkite Awards that year as a guest. This year, Greg wins an award for excellent journalistic analysis and helping voters evaluate what candidates say. Judges praised his truth test segments, including one that went beyond sound bites to show the truthiness evident in an attack ad. Let's watch.
Jim Davis has the second worst attendance record in the entire Congress.
This is a rehashing of an old attack on Davis that first came from his Democratic primary opponent, Rod Smith. We'll have to use the WESH 2 News truth meter twice to explain this. Does Davis have the second worst attendance record in Congress overall, as the commercial would have you believe? The truth meter rings false. According to the nonpartisan Hill Monitor, Davis has a 92% voting attendance record since he was sworn into Congress in 1997. But does he have the second worst attendance record in Congress this term? Well, the truth meter rings true. Davis has missed 255 votes since January 2005, when he ramped up his campaign for governor. And it's worth noting that while Republican Congresswoman Katherine Harris is running for U.S. Senate, she's maintained a 91% attendance record this term. Here's where the commercial gets really silly.
I've seen his chair.
You've seen his chair?
It's always empty.
If the GOP is waiting for a call from Comedy Central, it could be a long wait. Now listen closely to this claim.
Jim Davis, only 3 bills passed in 10 years.
Here, the Republicans are talking about bills in which Davis has been a prime sponsor. The truth meter rings true, but Davis reminds us, as a Democrat working in a Republican-controlled Congress, getting bills passed is tough. Now, here's something you may not have caught. The original version of this ad that aired last week said Davis passed only 3 bills. Well, that turned out to be false. The Republicans decided to fix the blunder by crossing out the 3 and scribbling a 5 in the corner.
And Greg Fox is here to accept his award. Come on up.
Thank you, Norman Lear, and thank you to all of the judges who were kind enough to enjoy some of the samples of hard work we sent. It was a small sample of what we did collectively as a station at WESH. Since Fred Young is here, and we all like to thank Fred when he's here, I'm going to say thank you, Fred. You know, Hearst Argyle has made a commitment that we like to joke about in the newsroom sometimes, because we say, you know, we're committed to covering politics, but you know, and then we take a deep breath and we know exactly what that commitment is, and that is to make sure that voters are the focus of our stories and the focus of the intent of what drives our content. We do a lot of stories in local news. We could do an accident on one side of town that affects virtually no one. And we could do a fire on another side of town that affects virtually no one else. But every day we can do political news, and that affects just about everyone in any capacity, but especially the people who exercise their right to vote. And that's what makes politics and the coverage of politics so important. I'd like to thank my management at WESH that gives me the latitude to do what I need to do. Typically when we do a truth test like that, it requires sometimes 8 to 9 hours of research, sometimes more, sometimes less, just depends on what the ad is claiming. And you don't get that kind of room without a commitment from Hearst Argyle, my corporation, and certainly from my management at WESH. I'd like to thank my photographer, my political photographer, Tim Brown, who could not be here. His work is excellent and illustrated in a number of instances in the tape that I sent to the judges. And I'd like to thank my family, my wife and my 3 sons, who let me work weird hours sometimes to do it. And thank you all.
I think I'd like to take this moment to thank Fred, just in case I ever should work for you. Our next winner for local station individual achievement is Bill Horman from WTVG and ABC O&O in Toledo, Ohio. Bill won for providing very helpful information to voters and giving candidates and advocates time to speak. Judges were particularly impressed that he was able to make a county commissioner race interesting for viewers. In this clip, Bill puts an attack ad in the Ohio governor's race through a rigorous truth test.
It's common sense. Politicians vote what...
The ad was put together by Common Sense Ohio, and it takes aim at Ted Strickland's stance on 3 sensitive issues. First,
he voted against marriage as the union of a man and a woman.
That's true, but Ted Strickland's campaign agrees the candidate did twice vote against amending the U.S. Constitution to say marriage is only between a man and a woman. But they insist he's against changing the Constitution, not against marriage as a union between a man and a woman at all.
He voted to use your tax dollars to pay for abortions.
That's true. Like many Democrats, Ted Strickland supports abortion rights. And with regard to the charge, Strickland's campaign acknowledges he voted to continue Medicaid funding for abortions. Medicaid, of course, is financed with taxpayer dollars.
And Ted Strickland voted against protecting under God in the Pledge of Allegiance.
That one's misleading. It manipulates a Strickland vote, refusing to restrict the judge's ability to hear cases regarding the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, Strickland voted 3 times to protect under God in the pledge. But Republicans say Strickland's vote makes the pledge vulnerable to changes from activist judges if the right case comes up.
Ohio needs a leader who believes what you believe.
The Blackwell campaign rightly emphasizes that Common Sense Ohio is not affiliated with their campaign, but the group is funded and is run by Blackwell supporters. And Ted Strickland's campaign issued this letter. They're asking television stations to take that ad off the air, claiming it's false, misleading, and deceptive. But we wanted you to decide. I'm Bill Horman, and we just put that ad through the truth test.
Bill wanted to be here today, but he works at a small station, and there are budget constraints. I thank you on his behalf. Perhaps the Make-A-Wish Foundation, we could get them out. This has got to be, we got to help him. Our next winner in this local station individual achievement category is a team from King in Seattle, Robert Mack, reporter, and Michael Cate, producer. This is the 3rd time they've won this award for their superb election reporting. Judges said that King's major commitment to political coverage and the terrific talents of this reporting team make it the station to beat for quality political coverage. In this clip, Mack and Cate unravel the complexities of Initiative 933 by investigating the results of similar legislation, Measure 37, in neighboring Oregon.
The concept behind Measure 37 was simple. If regulations restrict what you can do with your land, the government should either pay you for reducing the value of your property or waive the regulation.
It's mine. We paid for it. Nobody else.
The campaign enlisted Dorothy English as its spokeswoman. In a poignant TV commercial, the 91-year-old widow told voters the laws are so unfair she couldn't even divide her land to give to her children. In the fall of 2004, voters passed the measure by 61%.
I think what happened was a lot of people related to what happened to Dorothy across the state. And they said, you know what, that happened to me too.
Is it time for Washington State to approve a similar law? We came back here to Oregon to find out what really happened 2 years after voters said yes. Some property owners say they're finally getting some fair treatment. But environmental groups say it's a disaster. Decades of land use planning and zoning gutted overnight.
What we're talking about here is fraud by the people who put this ballot measure together, and it's the jackpot fever by claimants.
At the environmental group Thousand Friends of Oregon, they knew they didn't stand a chance against Measure 37 the minute they saw the Dorothy English commercial. To date, 3,000 Oregonians have filed claims. Each red dot on this map, an attempt to roll back regulations on property. From Yamhill County, where a developer wants to turn a tree farm into an 850-lot subdivision, to the suburbs of Portland, where a property owner now plans a 75-unit high-rise condo in a single-family neighborhood.
Washingtonians need to look at the 3,000 claims that have been filed in Oregon, the 170,000 acres of land, most of them in the countryside, that are affected by those claims, and the thousands of neighbors who are scratching their heads and saying, what is the county going to allow to happen next door to me? How many houses?
Accepting the award on behalf of the Mac and Kate team, reporter Robert Mack. Oh, that's right. He's had his picture taken. Enough. Our final winner for local station individual achievement is the team of Ben Simoneau and Don Maddox of WGAL TV in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a Hearst Argyle station and NBC affiliate. Simoneau and Maddox won for absolutely watchable, probing, and aggressive coverage. Judges were excited to see a team taking the initiative produce excellent political coverage in a small market. In this clip, they analyzed the claims in an attack ad produced by Rick Santorum's campaign.
I'm Rick Santorum, and I approve this message.
It may be the most controversial ad to hit the air this year. We found it's also mostly incorrect.
Meet Bob Casey's campaign team.
In general, the ad is false, outright. None of the 7 men portrayed are actually members of Casey's Senate campaign team. One man is dead, and no one is currently behind bars. Let's go through the ad claim by claim.
A Philadelphia politician who gave Casey almost $400 grand.
This is in reference to State Senator Vince Fumo, who is under FBI investigation, but is not part of Casey's Senate campaign and has not given any money to Casey's run for Senate. The donations mostly went to Casey's run for governor 4 years ago, with smaller donations to his runs for Auditor General and State Treasurer.
A Philly businessman who gave Casey $31,000.
Here the ad's talking about Ron White, who was charged with extortion and conspiracy. But White has not given any money to Casey's run for Senate, and it's impossible for him to be part of the Casey campaign team because he's been dead for 2 years. White's donations were all directed at Casey's run for governor, and that was before word came out that he was under investigation.
Here to accept their award are Ben Simoneau, reporter, and Dan Maddox, photographer and editor. Congratulations.
Once again, I'll thank Fred Young, who does pay us very nicely. So I'm going to kind of echo what Michelle said and what Greg said in that we are just fulfilling here the leadership and the vision that is given to us by Hearst Argyle ownership. They set the agenda, and they believe this is an important service. This is why we exist as public broadcasters, is to provide this service and inform voters. As Greg said, we can cover breaking news that might not affect everybody, but this affects every single person, whether they vote or not. They pay taxes, and they live in these communities. So with that, I also want to thank our news director, Dan O'Donnell, who's not with us today. He laid down the vision for us and gave us the challenge to make it interesting and make it compelling to our viewers, and he gave us the time and the resources that we needed to pull it off. And so there's numerous people also that I know we just have to thank, all of our producers and other photographers who worked with us. And I have to thank Dan for making it look good. I mean, as you saw, just shooting a television commercial is not a very easy thing to do, but he does it magnificently. So with that, again, I just want to thank, I cannot stress enough how important it is, the leadership and the direction that we get from folks like Fred and from David Barrett and from our management at Hearst Argyle to really set the pace for us and challenge us and give us the resources that we need. And thank you also to the Norman Lear Center and USC Annenberg for these awards. It does feel so good to be recognized.
I should just say thank you and be done with it. But I want to say that all of the things that Ben just said, I echo all of those. Hearst, our station, our news director, everybody's so supportive, and we do what we do, and we're able to do what we do because of them. But I just want to say one quick thing about the award. To a person, news watcher or not, I said, won this Walter Cronkite Award. Walter Cronkite Award. I mean, they love it. They think it's great, even if they don't know anything about it. I mean, it really makes a difference. And I think that having the name on the award, having the Annenberg School involved, everything, it's just a really nice award to win, and I think it means something. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad a photographer came along to accept, because those of us who work in broadcast journalism know without those guys, without the editors, without the producers, we are nothing. So it was really great that he was here. You can see why we had 4 winners in that category. Our next award category is for local cable station, small market. And the winner is News 8 Austin, an independent station owned by Time Warner. Now a 2-time winner, News 8 Austin got top marks from the judges for impressive political coverage. Judges were particularly enthusiastic about an innovative series devoted to the issues that arose within 4 families of voters. This clip offers a selection of scenes from that series.
Today and this week, I will introduce 4 families who News 8 will follow through the fall political season. As we embark on our journey, we hope to share with you some of our voters' voices. They came for the fireworks and stuck around through the rain. Even though it was a soggy 4th of July, we still found what we were looking for: voters. We asked these 4 families to be our snapshot of what's on the minds of Texas voters throughout the election season.
Emperor Augustus, no free lunch.
For most of the Rangel family, the hot topic is immigration.
I'm paying taxes, and they most of the time get everything free. And I would like for them to get, start pitching into the American way.
We followed a soccer ball to our 3rd family.
Well, our family is probably the most unexpected family you could come across. I'm half Palestinian, and my husband is from Senegal. What about your hat?
Yasmin Turk is a mom, wife, Muslim, full-time student, and an employee at Safe Place, a center for women who've been abused. All of these roles play into what's important to her politically. The News 8 Austin watch party at El Mercado, where there was no shortage of voters' voices and what they think of the governor's race.
I realize the power of the incumbency, and I realize that that's the reason things stay the same, is because oftentimes we don't go beyond what we're used to and what we know and what we're familiar with.
Not everybody feels that he's doing anything, but I still feel that he's doing something, and I know that he's going to be doing something.
Between our voters, there were 2 votes for Perry, 2 for Strayhorn, and 4 for Bell. They all agreed the outcome was no surprise.
And here to accept the award for News 8 Austin are Amy Hadley, senior reporter, and Kevin Benz, news director.
so honored and humbled to receive this award from you all, coming with the Walter Cronkite name on it and from such a great school as Annenberg. Really, really does mean a lot. And it's, I would be remiss if I did not also, on behalf of our station, thank our ownership group, Time Warner, who truly believes, through their commitment to us, that community service extends beyond the public airwaves, that media companies hold a high public service. And I also appreciate from you all how much you are doing to push television stations to think beyond what a traditional political story looks like, and that politics is so important, but it can also be not just compelling and informative, it can also be in many ways entertaining, which I think Mr. Norman Lear would agree with, that this is important stuff and people can enjoy watching it as long as we are smart enough and creative enough to bring it in a really interesting way. Thank you very much.
4 years into my long career now, this is certainly an honor for me to be here as a young journalist and also to have been given the opportunity to do this, because confession time in front of all you political junkies, my area of expertise thus far in my career is more on feature reporting and live reporting, and so for me to be able to do this, A, was a real pleasure, but then also it was neat to kind of use me as the person to put politics back in the hands of people and put television in the hands of the people. So I have seen that done in a number of ways throughout all of you stations. So thank you to your commitment as well to a young journalist.
In the category of local cable station large market, this year's winner is NECN, New England Cable News. This station produced intelligent, well-written coverage that demonstrated true enterprise journalism. Judges recognized the station for fleshing out issues that arose in debates through follow-up interviews and analysis. In this clip from a profile of Bernie Sanders, NECN investigates the unlikely history of an upstart socialist from Vermont who ultimately becomes a U.S. Senator.
We took on the entire ruling class of the city of Burlington. You name it, we took it on.
Always a champion of the working class, Sanders would use his time in the Burlington mayor's office to create programs for low-income housing and a city-run daycare. He established sister cities in Nicaragua and Cuba. And while he made few friends in the two-party system, Sanders was also building voter support, which made re-election a formality.
And in Burlington, Vermont tonight, one very independent Yankee is being sworn in for his third term as mayor.
And in 1990, after 4 terms as mayor of Burlington, Mr. Sanders went to Washington to begin what would be a 16-year stranglehold on Vermont's lone congressional seat. Not bad for a brash Brooklyner who was once quoted as saying that JFK's inauguration speech made him nauseated.
The bottom line is, what democratic socialism means to me is that we use government resources to say that all of our people, the children, the elderly, the vulnerable, working people, have at least a minimal standard of living. In this country, it is absurd that we are now seeing hundreds of thousands of lower-income kids not going to college, not because they're not smart. You know why? They can't afford to go to college, and they don't want to get out of school $40,000 or $50,000 in debt.
And it is that message, along with the plan for a national health care program, that Sanders says he'll now take to the Senate. And following the resignation of Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, he also promises to apply enormous pressure on the White House to pull out of Iraq.
And NECN News Director Charles Kravitz is here to accept the award.
Because I once worked for him, I'd like to also thank Fred Young. And because I might someday work for him again. There are a lot of people back in Boston who would like me to extend their thanks to you for a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication. March 2nd was NECN's 15th anniversary. And a week after we launched NECN, was Super Tuesday in 1992. And so we really had a baptism of fire. But we also came to realize how important politics would be to us and is 15 years later. It is and has been our calling card. Our highest ratings in the history of NECN have been on election nights. We continue to do long-form programming, including an hour-long documentary that we're doing on the first 100 days of the governorship of the first African-American governor in Massachusetts. We've done other documentaries on political issues. We're deeply committed to this, and so it means a tremendous amount to be recognized by all of you. I might also want to take a second to tell you that I'm spearheading an effort in Massachusetts to bring a shield law to that state. There are 33 states in the District of Columbia that have shield laws. Massachusetts does not. At a time when I think we would all agree that the tensions between public institutions and political institutions and the press are as difficult as they have ever been in my career anyway, this is a tremendously important effort in Massachusetts. There's also a federal shield law before Congress now, and I would encourage all of you to do everything you can to support it. I believe that there is a connection between great political coverage, shining truth on what is happening in our political institutions, and the need for protections of journalists so they are not thrown in jail or fined for doing their work. Thank you very much.
We have another 3-time winner in the next category, local public station small market. Wisconsin Public Television garnered its 3rd award for tackling campaign issues by telling compelling stories about real people. The judges were impressed with the production value, which was enhanced by beautiful shots and elegant pacing, giving local flavor to news coverage. In a moment, you'll see the grim personal story of one Wisconsin family, which the station used as the starting point for an analysis of healthcare solutions proposed by each of the gubernatorial candidates. The clip, please.
Freiberg reports that medical costs are forcing this family to make tough choices.
On a farm tucked among the hills and valleys of Buffalo County, 36-year-old Melanie Prushinsky says she no longer even notices the beauty around her because she is so stressed out.
We're all getting very sick and tired of this, and it's going to get to a point that you sell the farm.
Selling the farm is not a choice this family wants to make. When milk prices went up last year, this family actually suffered a big blow because the state health insurance program for low-income families with children, known as Badger Care, dumped the Prushinskys this past August after they made too much money to qualify.
And it's time, I think, that people start waking up and realizing that farming, we bust our butts here and we pay our own insurance, and it's awful. It's awful what we have to pay, and then for our own state to kick us off because we had one, quote, good year of farming. We have to see which one's going to bleed.
Because their 6-year-old daughter, Michaela, is diabetic. Her doctor's visits and supplies are expensive and time-consuming. Neither parent can work full-time off the farm for health insurance because of Michaela's needs. And the Prushinskys' 14-year-old son, Jeremy, has his own special needs. They include ADHD, which requires a special team of doctors and medicines. Right now, the family is in a high-risk insurance plan for Michaela. But because diabetes is considered a pre-existing condition, her mother says, coverage doesn't kick in for 6 months.
Senior news producer Andy Moore is here to accept Wisconsin Public Television's award. Andy?
I am so proud to be here, and like everyone that's been at the podium today, I'm here because of the shooters and the videographers, the graphic artists, the directors. Television, as we know, is a weakest link proposition, and that's why I'm here. We didn't have any weak link to send, and so. But no, it's the team effort that got us here, and everyone pulling in the same direction. Our management at Wisconsin Public Television, I'm particularly grateful for. Our management at WPT is as committed to getting our local news production on the air as they are in buying the next Nova, and that is something that we never take for granted. Since none of them could come today, I have to say that I'm personally very connected to this award by virtue of Mr. Cronkite and Mr. Lear. As a 13-year-old growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, Walter Cronkite kind of held our hands through the Watergate hearings and got me thinking for the first time about the importance of covering government. And Norman Lear and All in the Family got me thinking about important things like bigotry and poverty. And so the combination of those two individuals have made a big impact on how important it is for me to be here personally. Wisconsin's a great place to cover politics. We have Russ Feingold over here on the left, and Tommy G. Thompson way up here on the right. Wisconsin Public Television is a tremendous place to cover the gamut. It's a huge responsibility, and a lot of hard work brought us here, which is a mixed blessing because we'd like to come back again. And so thank you, everyone, for the honor and for the motivation.
In the category of local public station, large market, this year's winner is WGBH Boston. WGBH served its market well by providing well-produced, smart discussions about journalism and politics in its nightly news and public affairs program, Greater Boston with Emily Rooney. Judges thought the station offered an involving mix of information and opinion as it evaluated press coverage of political news. As you'll see in this clip, Emily Rooney examines how Governor Deval Patrick became entangled in the cause célèbre of a convicted rapist who had deep support from politicians and the press until his DNA test came back positive.
Well, I think his guilt is an open question, for sure.
Goldscheider has written a number of lengthy and detailed pieces, pointing to a botched investigation and possible evidence tampering. Meanwhile, the family of rape victim Lenise Plant says Lear is a master of public relations and has conned everyone, including the press.
Convicted criminal, I guess in jail is allowed 10 phone numbers, 10 PIN numbers. 7 of his are media people.
Yeah.
Now, who does that?
In the last few days, Lear has picked up the phone again, calling Adrian Walker at the Globe and Dan Ray of CBS 4, as we said earlier. Ray, though, skillfully turned the story to Deval Patrick.
Lear told me yesterday that you contributed $5,000 to the fund that John Silber was a part of to get his DNA tests.
Now, that doesn't sound right to me.
Which is why Deval Patrick, not Ben Lear, is now being questioned about the truth.
Of course, Deval Patrick did come out and admit that he did give $5,000. He told that to the Globe. But, you know, this is a classic Pied Piper story. One person starts delving into this story because Ben Lear was so adamant and called everybody. Right away, back in 1984, he started calling people. 1 or 2 people get onto it. They start telling the story. Before you know it, literally dozens of journalists in this city looked at the story, and a couple of them became true believers. You get a couple, and suddenly it's like the old Norman Mailer, Jack Abbott story, and suddenly it's a celebrity cause. And I can't say this because I don't know for sure, but I doubt sincerely that Deval Patrick looked deeply into this story before he signed on to that parole board letter.
Well, he told me, when I talked to him about this on Wednesday, and he said, look, I can't say I really read the record, or read the record, but I don't want to misquote him, but he made it clear he really wasn't familiar with it at all.
Emily's show is a nightly effort, and so it was impossible for her and her team to break away from those demands, but I thank you on her behalf. We have a remarkable winner in our next category, Small Station Group. Hearst-Argyle Television won its 4th consecutive award for its inspiring countrywide political coverage. Judges were impressed by the work of several stations, some of which we've already seen today. In this series of clips, we see Hearst-Argyle's commitment to detailed research, tough questions, perceptive candidate profiles, and a strong commitment to debates. Let's take a look.
Raised on a farm in Japan, for Maisie Hirono, it's been quite a journey to the banana fields on the Eva Plain.
I have the traditional grassroots campaign going on all the neighbor islands.
With 14 years in the legislature, 8 years as lieutenant governor, and an unsuccessful bid for governor on her resume, she's confident and leading, she says, in her bid for the Democratic nomination for the U.S. House of Representatives.
We only have 4 people representing the whole state and Washington, D.C. We want to make sure that somebody's going to hit the ground running for them.
I don't even know what she's talking about on that.
Medicare Part D, voting against the prescription drug plan bill. I'm sorry, that's something you should have known about.
Listen, that is an absolutely flawed sellout, bailout to the drug companies and to the HMO insurance companies. You know how bad it is?
So you're proud of that vote?
I voted against it. You bet I am. And you know how bad it is?
I think the differences are very clear on this issue.
5-year-old Charlie Deaton knows what the school bond issue means for him.
A new classroom and maybe a new playground.
Here at Casey, we're going to get a $5 million building addition.
Casey Elementary Principal Leslie Coleman says money from the bond issue will provide Charlie and his classmates with a new playground and move students out of 9 trailers serving as classrooms.
It would be nice to have all of our students in a safe and secure permanent building so that when we have tornado drills or severe weather, we can keep everyone in the classrooms.
Besides Casey, Span and McLeod Elementaries are in line for renovations, and money from the school bond issue will be used to build new schools in North and South Jackson.
And now we're pleased to present the ubiquitous and much acclaimed Fred Young, who's been with the news division of Hearst-Argyle for more than 40 years, currently is Senior Vice President of News. Congratulations.
You know, I just said to Michelle, it's a certain irony here of us being called a small group. It's only in the presence of my friend Steve Schwade from NBC that Hearst-Argyle would be a small group. I do want to talk about names for a second. You know, early in my career, I spent a lot of time learning how to quit talking like I came from Pittsburgh and saying downtown and Southside and Pittsburgh Stillers. And for the last 10 years, I've been going to classes 2 nights a week to learn how to talk like Michelle. The reason being that Michelle is reflective of 25, 26 other news directors who run the news departments that make this kind of content possible. Michelle and Barb Michard in Orlando, and Dan O'Donnell at WGAL in Lancaster, and our cousin by corporate ownership, Charlie at NECN in Boston. These are the people that really make this happen. Not a corporate news person, but while we're writing names down, I do want you to remember a couple of other names. One is Candy Altman, the other is Brian Bracco, who work for me, who are really the deputy sheriffs, really the sheriffs who ride herd on these 24 television stations and make sure that in the course of every year we do the kind of coverage that we can be proud of, because they're really the doers and the ones who work closely with all the guys out in the field. But the other name you should write down, because this is the important one, is David Barrett, who's the CEO of this company, who has the commitment and the belief, and has had since we adopted the commitment umbrella, to really stand behind us and push all of us to do the kind of work, the public interest work that Marty talked about this morning, to make us proud to be broadcasters. And having been with Commissioner Copps on many occasions and heard him talk, and respectful of the things he said here today, we like to do the kinds of things that of which our our employees, our stockholders, and certainly our viewers can be proud. I don't know that I see Brian here at the moment, but it occurred to me when he was telling everybody this morning how he did the Mark Foley story. This is the 6 degrees of separation in broadcasting. One of our stations, WPBF in West Palm Beach, won the NAB Service to America Award last year. And Commissioner, you've been there. It's a huge dinner and a big deal. And the Washington personality who introduced our general manager at the request of the NAB was their Congressman, Mark Foley, and who sat at the table with us. That might have been his last public appearance because Brian was probably at home reading his email that night. because I don't think that he was really out and about after that, but it is an irony. But we're proud of all of these stations. We're proud of the work we do. We're proud of Greg and Ben and Dan and all of the people who work for us, who do the kind of heavy lifting every day that make it possible for 1 or 2 lucky people to come here every year. Thank you very much.
In the category of large station group, NBC Television Stations Division won for its overall group-wide commitment to political coverage, some of which we've already seen today. Stations in the group made good use of veteran reporters who provided analysis of races and plenty of solid coverage of issues. Judges were particularly impressed with reportage that allowed viewers to hear what candidates and voters have to say. Let's watch some excerpts.
On this edition of News Conference, 4 years ago, they were political combatants. Now former Governor Gray Davis and former GOP candidate Bill Simon sound off from the sidelines about what issues are being ignored. They also have advice for the current candidates for governor. And of the 13 ballot measures this fall, Prop 87 could be the most costly. Will it increase the price of gasoline in this state or do just the opposite? Lower the price by giving us alternatives to fossil fuels.
Over the last couple of months, we've introduced you to 5 of these races in the House in Balance series. Every week until Election Day, we're going to check in on them to see what's happening. Let's start tonight in Connecticut.
The Democrats' best shot anywhere to take a Republican seat could be Fairfield County's 4th district. And this week, Chris Shays and Diane Farrell agreed to 12, count them, 12 debates. But until those start in early October, they're doing the next best thing, running TV ads.
Good morning, I'm Carol Marine. Welcome to our live special NBC5 Sun Times election poll edition of City Desk. We're calling it the Political Pulse. What are voters thinking as we head toward Decision 2006 and beyond? In the next half hour, we'll give you some sometimes startling results of our exclusive poll.
Now, a special presentation from NBC5. Jane McGarry's One-on-One.
Immigration. Governor Rick Perry has a plan to spot illegal immigrants from crossing the border. Education.
This plan is the best plan.
Soaring gas prices.
If they're getting away with ripping people off.
Rising property taxes.
Property taxes keep going up and up and up.
Tonight, we ask the Texans running for governor the questions you want answered.
What about the issue of gasoline prices? What do you think needs to be done to fix the state of education in Texas, and how would you pay for it?
What do you think we should do about immigration?
We're proud to have here today Steve Schwade, Senior Vice President, News and Programming of the NBC TV Stations Division, as well as Bob Long, VP of News at KNBC here in Los Angeles, and Greg Dawson, News Director and VP of News at KNSD in San Diego, all here to share in the award. Steve, will you do the honors?
We'll stand with you, Steve.
You live for the lunch.
And I should say, Steve is just as big as Fred.
I will be quick because I know I'm holding you from the door here shortly.
To Fred, I just wanted to, we just got the alert in. There is a new website, ilovefredyoung.com. It is now available. You can contribute. We'll take the money. You know, a quick line here. All politics is local. It really is. All politics is local. And that's really been the strength of our stations. You know, I work in New York, but our news directors are all over the country. I can pick up the phone and suggest something, but the spirit of our news operations, they know what's going on in their markets. Every day, as part of what they do in their fabric, is covering politics. It really, this award is what they do every day. They know the community they cover. They decide the stories they should do, the type of focus they should do. They just do a great job. So thank you very much.
Our last two awards are network awards. For National Network Program, ABC News This Week with George Stephanopoulos won for its On the Trail series, which took George out of the studio to interview candidates on their home turf. Excellent preparation by producers and by George, and deft editing made interviews both substantial and profoundly watchable. Let's watch this clip as he probes Senate candidate Harold Ford about his position on abortion.
The issue of abortion. You describe yourself as pro-life. When do you think life begins?
Well, let me say this. Abortions, the goal here should be to reduce the number of abortions. We can debate day in and day out when it starts, when it doesn't start. The reality is we want to reduce the number. And we've done nothing in this country for 50 years other than debate this. But, George, the question is irrelevant.
That question is irrelevant?
Because the issue is abortions. If we agree that it starts 3 months in at conception, once the baby is born, if the goal here is to reduce the number of abortions, then why aren't we talking about ways to do that? If the Republicans believe so strongly against abortions, how come they haven't offered a piece of legislation to do that?
Well, they put out bans to ban what they call partial birth
I voted against the ban, or I vote for the ban.
I voted against it 4 times.
I voted against it. 7 of the 10 years I've been in the Congress. I had a changed experience about my 3rd year in the Congress. And a doctor here in Memphis called me and said, I want you to see something.
What was it?
No need to get into all of it, but he changed my mind on it. And it was a moment in my political career that I am proud to announce that I grew or learned something that changed my mind on an issue.
Well, what is it that you learned? What did you see? What did you learn?
George, it was a personal decision on my part. It had nothing to do with anything other than seeing something and said, you know what? The other side has a point on this.
George had planned to be here today, but he's currently covering the aftermath of the Virginia Tech shooting. Fortunately, fellow ABC News reporter Brian Ross is here and will accept the award for him. Brian?
George could not be here, and Rob Lowe, who played George on West Wing, also could not be here. So I was asked to. George emailed me. He's busy on a number of stories, but quite honored, obviously, to receive this award. And I think all of us at ABC are honored to have George stand up against a very heavy traffic on Sunday morning against Tim Russert and Bob Schieffer. George holds his own, more than holds his own. This series, he wants you to know, was born out of desire to bring a unique and rich experience to the Sunday morning audience. In order to do that, George got out of the studio and went on the road, and he is deeply honored to be included among the distinguished reporters, producers, and executives honored here today. Thank you very much on behalf of George and This Week.
This year, the judges decided to present a special award to ABC News' Brian Ross and the ABC News Investigative Unit to recognize enterprise journalism that changed the course of the election. By breaking the Mark Foley story, Brian and his team demonstrated the profound impact that political reporting can have. The investigation this story inspired is still underway. Let's watch a clip.
Our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, who broke this story, joins us now. Brian, it's an amazing story.
Indeed, Terry. Foley's resignation came just hours after ABC News questioned the congressman about a series of sexually explicit instant messages involving the congressional pages, high school students who are under 18 years of age.
I rise to offer my
In Congress, Foley was part of the Republican leadership and the chairman of the House caucus on missing and exploited children. He crusaded for tough laws against those who use the internet for sexual exploitation of children.
They're sick people. They need mental health counseling. They certainly don't need to be interacting with children.
But according to several former congressional pages, the congressman himself used the internet to engage in sexually explicit exchanges. Foley's resignation letter was submitted late this afternoon, and he left Capitol Hill without speaking to reporters. In a statement, he said he was deeply sorry and apologized for letting down his family and the people of Florida. But he made no mention of the internet messages or the pages. One former page tells ABC News that his entire class was warned about Foley by people involved in the program. Other pages told ABC News they were hesitant to report Foley because of his power in Congress. This all came to a head in the last 24 hours. Yesterday, we asked the congressman about some much tamer emails from one page, and he said he was just being overly friendly. After we posted that story online, we began to hear from a number of other pages who sent these much more explicit instant messages. When the congressman realized we had them, he resigned, Terry.
Senior producer Rhonda Schwartz and producer Maddie Sauer will join Brian to accept this award. Brian?
When I first started at network television, Reuben Frank, who invented the Huntley-Brinkley Report and was president of NBC News, said the thing about network television is we don't really have good intentions, but sometimes we do have good results. My experience has been a blessed one, working with people who do have good intentions and are interested in doing the right kind of work. And certainly Maddie Sauer and Rhonda Schwartz, my partners, have shown that again and again, and really they are the ones who won this award. It's a collaborative effort in television, as you know, but these are the reporters. We call them producers, but they really are reporters. The ABC News investigative team has been in place, was in position to break a story like this. For the last really 8-10 years, we've been covering politics in our own unique way as the outsiders, not part of the Washington inside gang, going after campaign finance, the crooks and the liars in Congress. And so when we saw this story, we knew there was something there, and we had the people and the power and the money to go after it. And we were pleased to report what we did on this night with Mark Foley. It came as a surprise. Generally, our stories, sometimes they have an impact, sometimes they don't. This one did, and we're very honored, extremely honored, to be given this award today. Thank you very much.
As we close this program, I want to again congratulate all of our winners and say that you do us the greatest honor, not only by being part of this wonderful event and by the great work that you do every day as producers and reporters and as executives, but also by hiring our best students. And so thank you so much. Go forth, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2 years. And Commissioner Copps, thank you so much to you.